Good evening, everyone. We got a lot to get through tonight, so let me start the recording and we shall proceed with the Liberty Talk.
In the restaurant of life, we're putting freedom back on the menu. It's the Missouri Liberty Report with John Williams, working with grassroots organizations and legislatures to make Missouri the freest state in the nation. Let freedom ring.
And we are back with another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Thanks so much to all of you for joining us tonight on YouTube and Rumble, and as to all of you in radio land and podcast land, again, thank you very much for your continued listenership and subscriptions and whatnot. We got a lot to get through. A quick roll crawl. It's going to be one of those nights, folks. I can't talk. We're already starting off hot. Already, we got Voodoo Queen, who's always checking in at number one. We've got David Dwyer, and we've got Catherine Dreyer. Excuse me, in the house as well. Good to see you all. Again, folks, we've got a lot that we want to get into tonight. No doubt about it. Again, folks, so the Coolidge Day thing that we want to do next year, I'm thinking end of April, beginning of May. I'm going to talk to the local park board, and we've got one big pavilion right in our biggest park here in town. I'd like to try to do it outdoors, so I will be looking at seeing what that's going to cost. I think it's very minimal cost to rent that pavilion, and we'll try to do it outside, and hopefully the weather will be nice, and it won't be like this past spring where every time you turn around there's a freaking tornado warning or severe thunderstorm warning. Something's wind blowing, hail coming down, and trees being having the crap beat out of them. Maybe we'll stay dry, not get blown away, because I only weigh like 150 pounds, so I have to put lead weights in my pockets to keep me from being swept away. Anyway, so much to discuss this evening. Of course, everybody knows, that the elections are next Tuesday. Like, I have to say it. But there's so much madness in this whole thing coming from the media and opinions coming out from different people who are generally very libertarian-minded, talking like they're going to vote for Trump. And that's everybody's decision. I'm not going to harp on them for choosing to vote however they're going to vote. But I've heard some big libertarian voices saying, I just can't with Kamala Harris. I cannot. But before we do that, because I don't know how long that discussion's going to go on, me and Brandon were having a very spirited discussion before we started the live stream. I just want to walk through for the next few minutes, just as a reminder of what ballot initiatives and amendments and everything that are going to be on the ballot on Tuesday here in Missouri. So again, let me just share my screen here. Boy, if I could work a computer tonight, I'd be happy. My whole stream starting soon thing would not kick on. So I was just like, well, they're just going to stare at me and Brandon while I play a little music to start the stream, and I look like a freak. Let me pull this up here. This is Amendment 2. And it just says the amendment would provide for Missouri Gambling Commission to allow entitled entities to offer sports wagering through online sports wagering platforms to individuals located in the state at excursion gambling boats or at any location within each sports district. Sports wagering would be established in the state no later than December 1st, 2025. It would allow license fees and a 10% wagering tax on revenues received to be appropriated for education purposes. It's always education. It's always the schools, including public schools and higher education. Like the colleges need any more government money. It would also provide funding for the Compulsive Gambling Prevention Fund, which would include researching compulsive gambling, implementing treatment and recovery programs, and services related to compulsive gambling. Only individuals 21 years of age or older would be able to participate in sports wagering. So Okay, we'll let me turn this back off. Brandon, what do you think, man? Are you cool with the whole sports? I hate that they have to push this through with all the money's going to the schools. It's like that's what worries me about these amendments. It's like it's how they tug on everyone's heartstrings to get them to vote for it, because the numbers you're hearing, it could get $10 million when the first 5 years to public schools. I'm like, right now, they're getting $12 billion, and we're not getting the bang for our buck for $12 billion. So, but what are your thoughts on it?
Oh, well, I'll just sound off on sin taxes while I'm at it, because they drive me nuts. Like, just because I choose to spend my money doing something means the government gets a piece of it. Like, you already took a piece of it when I made the money. Now I want to go spend it on something I want to do. I'm sorry, it's not something that you want to do. Like, what if they put a 20% tax on restaurants to fund the firehouses? Like, that's exactly like punishing people for going out to eat because, like, in the namesake of, like you said, it's something that just sounds pleasant. Another thing I hate about it is the licensing fees on it. Why are the licensing fees so high? I'm reading the bill right now. It says that applicants for a retail license cannot exceed $250,000, and an applicant for a mobile license cannot exceed $500,000. What is that for? Like, what is that paid? Like, what are these licensing fees? They're just money grabs by the government for some bureaucrat to get fat on taxpayer dime, or on the people who want to run a business on the constituents' dimes. I hate it, but that's me. Your thoughts?
I mean, I know everybody's. Anytime something's going to go, let me go back and look at this again, because if this website will ever catch up with me, come on, you can do it. Go back a page. There you go. I don't know. Okay, I don't see anything about this going. Oh. Here's my big problem with this. If they were just going to say, we're going to legalize sports gambling and that's it. Okay, those people who want to go out and they want to gamble on a sporting, a football game, a baseball game, whatever, fine. My problem with it is they're putting it into the Constitution. Why do we have to keep adding to the Constitution? The Constitution is there to limit the scope, size, and power of the state government. The Missouri Constitution is there to limit the size, scope, and power of the Missouri government. And yet we're always amending the Constitution. We did it for bingo. We did it for weed. Now we're going to do it for sports gambling. And if we're not careful, our Constitution is going to be about 2 inches thick, because they keep amending it every time you turn around. It's like, people have got to understand. I get it. A lot of people are wanting sports gambling. Good. Get on your legislators and have them pass it through the Capitol building, through the Senate and the House. Have the governor sign it into law. Bingo, the people got what they wanted. But for the love of God, stop amending the damn Constitution. It's getting really, I'm going to use the hard R word again, retarded, because it is. All right, let's move on to the next one. This is the big one in the state of Missouri. Amendment 3. I have to establish a right to make decisions about reproductive health care, including abortion and contraceptives, without any government interference of that right, presumed invalid, remove Missouri's ban on abortion, allow regulation of reproductive health care to improve or maintain the health of the patient, which, if you think about it, Brandon, what a contradiction. We're going to get government out of abortion, but they're also going to regulate reproductive health care. So how are you getting government out of it and then letting them regulate it? That's contradictory as hell. And then require the government not to discriminate in government programs, funding, and other activities against persons providing or obtaining reproductive health care, and allow abortion to be restricted or banned after fetal viability, except to protect the life or health of the woman. And again, going into the freaking Constitution. This one's going in the Constitution too. But your thoughts, Brandon, on Amendment 3?
Well, it's a hot button issue, obviously. I don't want to say something wrong here, but I just want to say that, like, I understand that life begins at conception. I understand that argument. Like, that argument, like, in a philosophical sense of logic, of like making sense of something, that makes the most sense. But I mean, yeah, pretty much I guess that's pretty much it. Is that, like, I'm under the, like, I have a hard time separating, like, as a new father especially, separating the like that. When I was looking at my ultrasound pictures of my baby girl, that's kind of what did it for me. Is there's nothing you can't. You even as most people who are expecting a child, they end up calling it the baby. You know what I'm saying? Almost everyone calls it the baby. So I think putting this into the Constitution is wrong, just on a moral level, but it's not the reason I'm into politics. I will say, like you said, it's stupid that it's going into the Constitution and not something passed.
Yeah, okay, so and here's the thing, right? I believe that there have been states who have tried to say absolutely no abortion whatsoever, yada, yada, yada. It doesn't matter if the woman's life's in danger. That's very rare that happens. But, and there was no IVF and things like that. No, that's just wacky. Now you're going way off the reservation if you try to ban in vitro fertilization. I think that's stupid. And if, I've heard there was a fascinating interview. I don't know how many people, like, watch Tucker Carlson or listen to his podcast. He had Jimmy Dore on there. Now, I've never really listened to anything Jimmy Dore said, and it's not because I didn't like the guy, just I hadn't taken the time. So him and Tucker have a 2-hour conversation, and it is a great conversation. And even Jimmy Dore, who identifies more as a progressive left type of guy, said that just being what he considers pro-choice is on abortion is legal, safe, and rare. Okay, so it's like there better be a darn good reason an abortion is being, again, maybe the fetus is dying, or the woman's life is at risk, something like that. He's like a legal, safe, and rare. That's how he describes his pro-choice views. But when he talks to other Democrats, oh, no. We're not doing this legal, safe, and rare. It's just full swing. Abortion. Just, that's what pro-choice is. You either you're either going to allow them or you're not. There won't be a line there that says, it's got to be legal, safe, and rare. They have no interest in that. And that drives him. Now, this is a progressive left guy laying out the most well thought out argument that I've ever heard, because he even as a progressive, he understands. You don't just go around letting abortions be abortions. It's dumb. You don't let people just, I don't want my kid, get rid of it even if it's 3 months old. And so, but the most of the Democrats do not grasp this. My fear with abortion is, with so many other things, is that the value of a human life is minimized. And if you just allow, if every state in the country just says, yep, we're just going to do abortions, and you just minimize the value of a human life, it's much easier down the road to expand past that. I mean, we see what's happening in Canada right now to veterans. People, veterans of the military in Canada that are having medical issues. There have been people that have approached them, doctors telling them, well, you could go into this, little chamber thing and just basically off yourself instead of getting the medical treatment. Okay, so that's in Canada. People think that won't come here. It will, especially if you devalue human life. If you find it so easy to toss life away, then later on down the road, it'll be our elderly that they'll just want to toss out too, because they're too expensive for the state to take care of anymore, especially if you ever get to a single-payer tax or a single-payer healthcare system. When those people are considered a burden to the state, they're not going to get surgeries. They're going to be like, here's some stuff to keep you comfortable when you go home to die. And that's just another life they throw away. And I've literally heard people who are supposedly pro-life try to tell me that they understand. Well, yeah, after they get to a certain age, you don't want to do a surgery on them more. It might be wasted effort. Well, who made you the arbiter of who's going to make the choice for this elderly person? What happens if that's you down the road? Now, you're going to be against that crap real quick. But now that you're not elderly, it's fine. Well, you think your kids are going to just, pay for all your surgeries or whatever? It just drives me nuts. But yeah, they just seemingly throwing out the value of life is what bugs me the most about this. I want to protect kids. But that fear that people are just, it's just a life. It's little. You can't see it yet. It's not out of the womb. And I think that's what makes it so easy, because it's in the womb right now. And they just think it's not outside talking and crying because it's hungry or needs its diaper changed. You don't hear it. You don't see it. So, okay. Well, things will get worse after that. And that scares the bejesus out of me. But Brandon and I were talking before the show, let me pull this back up because I want to show you something else. Here's a list of other states that are going to have it on the ballot. So we have Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Maryland, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New York, Nevada, and South Dakota are all going to have some type of abortion initiative on their ballot. The Democrats are pushing this hardcore. And again, in 2022, as Brandon and I were discussing before the show, this worked out real slick for them because having the abortion things on in was it Ohio and some other states where the Republicans were favored to win, got all those Democrat voters out, and then the Democrats ended up winning those congressional seats, and we didn't see the big red wave. Mind you, most of the Republican candidates that they trotted out there weren't really worth a hoot. But anyway, all right, we'll move on here to, let's see, Amendment 5. Let's kind of gloss over these a little bit. Amendment 5 is going to allow Gaming Commission to issue one additional gambling boat license to operate on the portion of the Osage River stretching from the Missouri to Bagnell Dam. Let me go down here. Let's see. Yeah, also goes in the Constitution. Brandon.
Well, I just that I just think it's weird that. So what probably happened is there's a company who wants to have a casino, and I guess a riverboat casino, I'm guessing. And so they paid a bunch of money for a bunch of people to go gather signatures to get this on the ballot. But it only allows for one more license. So I feel like if it passes, like someone's already got this license. Is that what you said? I'm sorry, I didn't really I
No,
haven't really
they're
looked
trying
too
to
much
get a license. They're just saying that the Missouri Gaming Commission can allow one license for a casino boat on the Osage that would go, I guess it could travel anywhere from where the Osage runs into the Missouri all the way up to Bagnell Dam. That's all this is. It's allowing one more licensed casino gambling boat here in the state on
Right,
that
one
Osage.
more.
One more. One
right?
more.
Right. So I feel like there's somebody's behind this. So or else it would be like if this was about freedom, it would be anyone can have a riverboat. Like anybody who wants to have a boat and have a casino on it, they can do that. But no, this is about, I guarantee there's some big company behind it, and if this passes, you'll see which company gets that extra license as to who paid for it.
Yeah, it just drives me this. Again, let me go back again and pull it back up here. Let's see. And this will go to requires all state revenues derived from the issuance of the gambling boat license shall be appropriated to early childhood literacy programs in public institutions of elementary education. Again, with the schools. Again, they get almost $12 billion this year in education. But we got to keep adding to it. We got to keep adding to it. And we'll keep bribing you with education money to get you to amend the freaking Constitution. What a bunch of driveling dolts these people are. But I guess they have nothing better to do. Here's an interesting one. This is Amendment 6. And this is levying of fees to support salaries of law enforcement personnel amendment. This is what it is. A yes vote supports amending the Missouri Constitution to define the administration of justice to include the levying of costs and fees to support the salaries and benefits of sheriffs, former sheriffs, prosecuting attorneys, former prosecuting attorneys, circuit attorneys, and former circuit attorneys. And so basically, as Tom Martz so eloquently has laid out before, that if you look at justice has nothing to do with judges, prosecuting attorneys, circuit attorneys, former circuit attorneys. None of those people are part of justice. So it should be going strictly to the sheriffs and former sheriffs. But the thing is to me, and Brandon will get your take on this too, of course, this to me says this incentivizes law enforcement to write more tickets in order to pad, because all this is the sheriff's pension funds are drying up. So this is their way of fixing it. And to me, it incentivizes certain law enforcement agencies to turn into even bigger revenue-generating agencies in order to pad and to build up the sheriff's pension funds. And again, government, how did they dry up? Why did they dry up? What happened in between the start of this and to this point? Why is that money dried up? They don't want to. No one's really, as far as I've seen, really laid out what happened. It's just, we'll do this, and then we'll take those court costs, and we'll just take some of that money or the additional money, and then funnel it over to these pension funds. It's like, okay, you don't think that's incentivizing people to write more tickets? Come on. That's a slam dunk for these guys. I'm not saying every sheriff's department will do that, but you're sure making it quite easy for them to make more money for their pension if you just open this up and go, well, yeah, every time someone's got to pay court costs or whatever, you're going to get a little bit of that additional funding. So I don't like it. And again, let me see. I want to make sure that yes. Shall the Missouri Constitution be amended to preserve funding of law enforcement personnel for the administration of justice? State and local government entities estimate an unknown fiscal impact. Brandon, take it away, man. Jesus.
I mean, it's just another way of bolstering the state. I'm sure all the statists are super excited to go vote yes on this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about bolstering their own power every time. I mean, almost every government move is about making itself bigger and making itself harder to come down. So, like you said, yeah, you're definitely going to see sheriffs and people pulling people over more. You're going to see prosecutors giving out higher fines because it's all circulating back to them now. So why wouldn't they?
Yeah, it's like a slam.
I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, like you said, it's a slam dunk for them. Every time, anytime somebody has an opportunity to make money for themselves, even if it screws over the average man, they do it. We've seen this. I mean, you see so many times throughout history, things like this happen.
So Catherine makes a good comment in the live chat here. So questions for constitutional amendments. Does this limit the government in this legislation? Does this limit the... And none of these are limiting the government. I wish people would understand and get a grasp of this, that the Constitution is not there to limit the people of the state. It is not to limit Catherine, Brandon, Voodoo Queen, Warrior Class 3, Agorizer, David, any of us. All you folks out there listening or watching, this isn't to limit any of us. That document was never meant. The U.S. Constitution nor the Missouri State Constitution was ever written with the purpose of limiting the people. And that's the thing. Because we get, and it could be good legislation, and not this crap that they're pushing, all the gambling and everything, but it could be good stuff that our elected representatives in Jeff City don't have the spine to do themselves. So what do? They're just like, oh, we'll just do a ballot initiative. And then we'll amend the Constitution, the very document that they swear an oath to uphold and defend. And apparently, we're going to have to change the oath. Do you swear to uphold, defend, and grow the U.S. or the U.S. and Missouri State Constitution? Are we going to have to amend the oath of office? Because apparently a lot of these folks don't understand that either. They don't understand the concept of what the Constitution's supposed to do. So it's nerve-wracking. So we got Amendment 7 here. A yes vote supports amending the state Constitution to provide that only U.S. citizens 18 years or older can vote, thereby prohibiting the state or local governments from allowing non-citizen voting, establish that each voter has one vote per issue or open seat, prohibit ranked choice voting, and require plurality primary elections where one winner advances to the general election. Now, Tom Martz also has a great take on this because the primaries suck, okay? And that we, the taxpayers, fund the primary, and I think that the parties should fund their own primary if they want to have one. Also, this will amend the Constitution. Make the Constitution consistent with state law by only allowing citizens of the United States to vote, prohibit the ranking of candidates by limiting voters to a single vote per candidate or issue, and require the plurality winner of a political party primary to be the single candidate at a general election. I think it would be interesting, just an interesting exercise one time, Brandon, one time, where you get a ballot and it just has the names for each office. It doesn't tell you what party they're from or anything. And just watch people's eyes gloss over like, oh, God, is this guy a Republican? Is he a Democrat? Is he Green Party? Is he Libertarian? Constitution? Who is this? I would love to see people just going into the polling places, looking at the ballot and going, and just freezing up. I mean, just lock up tighter than a drum. They don't know what the heck's going on. And because we have to fund their primaries, and I think that, again, here's another example of the state of these political parties fighting to, especially Republicans and only really Republicans and Democrats fighting to be the only two on the ballot, and then forcing other other parties to fight for all these signatures and everything just to get on the ballot and to get recognized as an actual candidate. And it's just another way for these two political parties to really just hold on and be the only two out there, and then you get to pick between a douche and a turd sandwich, and you're like, oh, great for me. I can't freaking wait. But anyway, what are your thoughts on this, Brandon?
I mean, it's prohibiting certain governments from going to ranked choice voting is, I mean, it's wrong. The people should be allowed to vote. Like the local municipalities and cities should be able to have ranked choice voting if they want. I think if they did go to like, if they quit putting party affiliations on the ballot, I probably would have done a little better this time around if people just had to guess a 1 in 3, 1 in 4 on who their political party was. But no, I think the whole thing is stupid. Yeah, it's all built at propping up the two-party system. That's why when you talk to Democrats and Republicans, they both like it. From what I've been talking to, they're both like, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they're in love with this stuff. All right, last one. This is Missouri Prop A, minimum wage and earned paid sick time initiative. So let's see. Let me go down here. The ballot summary. Okay, so do you want to amend? Now, this one's Missouri law. This one actually doesn't change the Constitution, which really, this tab, your tab just crashed. Something else is going to crash, like my blood pressure, if you're not careful. If they're not careful. So increase minimum wage January 2025 to $13.75 per hour, increasing $1.25 per hour until year 2026 when the minimum wage would be $15 an hour. Adjust minimum wage based on changes in the consumer price index each January beginning in 2027. Require all employers to provide 1 hour of... If this page doesn't quit jumping around, I'm going to lose my mind. For every 30 hours worked, you would get 1 hour of paid sick leave. Allow the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations to provide oversight and enforcement and exempt governmental entities, political subdivisions, school districts, and education institutions. So the government, its political subdivisions, school districts, and educators and education institutions would not be held to this $15 an hour. Now, how do you like that? You're going to force everybody else to have to pay $15 an hour, but if you work for a school or something, you don't have to pay $15 an hour. Isn't that lovely? Anything having to do with the government won't be held to the same standard that they're going to want to hold every single, whether it's a small business or a big corporation to. Now, talk about hypocrisy. But again, this is a big fat no for me. I mean, at least it doesn't amend the Constitution, but this is a big fat no for me.
Yeah, big fat no for me too. There are certain like high schoolers working at like ice cream shops. They don't need to be paid a living wage, that arbitrary term that politicians made up. But high school kids don't need to make enough money to afford a mortgage. Like, there are jobs for people to make less than the minimum, like not less than the, businesses and private citizens should be able to come together and make whatever agreement they want on wage and working conditions and everything. I mean, if you're a hardworking person who shows up to work on time, then you can probably negotiate a better salary or contract than stipulated by what the government regulates anyway. So I don't know which workers this is protecting, but it's just going to cost a lot of jobs and hurt businesses.
I forget what. So because I think the federal minimum wage is still like $7.25, $7.50 an hour. Let me see. I want to pull this up. Let's see. There was a thing. Oh, okay, yeah. So if you go to USA Facts, I'm just pulling this up. And let me pull up on this page so everybody here or watching can see this. Minimum wage in America. How many people are earning $7.25 an hour? In 2022, 1.02 million hourly workers. 1.3% of all hourly workers are making the federal minimum wage. Now, if you listen to politicians, they're going to make it sound like half the people in this country or more are making minimum wage. They're going to greatly exaggerate that statistic. You're like, oh man, all these people are making minimum wage. No, 1.3% are making $7.25 an hour, which means most of them, I would guarantee you just about most of these people are probably averaging $12 to $13 an hour. Even in my local area, you go to work at Subway or something like that, you could be making $12, $13 an hour starting out. It's just they exaggerate it so bad. Go ahead, Brandon.
Well, Missouri's minimum wage is already $12.50.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, you're only going to have certain states that the federal minimum wage and the state minimum wage are the same anyway. In my experience, and this is just my experience, most adults I know that make the minimum wage are collecting disability. So they can only make X amount a month or X amount a week on their paycheck anyway. And they're doing like telemarketing jobs and, like I said, things that don't require like lead gen for telemarketers. And things that, aren't worth a business to pay $15 an hour. If a business decides that paying somebody $15 an hour to do something is not worth it, that job is gone. And so I think anytime you try to, anytime the government steps in and tries to disrupt the labor market with any tactic they try to pull, it's only going to hurt business. It only stifles private citizens from making agreements with private businesses. And I don't understand why everyone is so in love with the idea of like this federally mandated minimum wage.
Yeah, so let me pull up this page here. This is from Department of Labor, the Department of Labor's website.
Everyone I know who works in the restaurant.
Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I was just saying that everyone I know in the restaurant industry and all of that, we all make above minimum wage anyway.
Yeah, let me pull up this page right here. So this is the minimum wage table, and this is for all the states. So you'll see like West Virginia, $8.75. Let's see. That's the lowest one I see on here.
What is Mississippi?
Mississippi is... Well, heck, it ain't even on here. How's that possible?
They might just be under the federal minimum wage still.
They might be. And then Guam is $9.25, but $8.75 so far on this chart is the lowest I see. So Alaska's $11.73, Arizona's $11. Oh, I'm sorry, Arkansas is $11. Arizona's $14.35. California's $16. Colorado $14.42. Connecticut $15.69. Washington D.C. $17.50. Delaware, $13.25, Florida, $12, Hawaii, $14, Illinois, $14, Massachusetts, $15, Maryland, $15, Maine's $14.15, Michigan's $10.33. Okay, so yeah, here we go. Equals federal minimum wage of $7.25. You've got Iowa, Idaho, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, North Dakota, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Texas, Utah, and Wisconsin. But as you can see, the 30-plus states have well above the minimum wage. And then you have no state minimum wage or state minimum wage is lower than $7.25. Employers covered by the FLSA must pay the federal minimum wage of $7.25. Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee, Wyoming. Who the hell is that? Anyway, so... there you go. It's most people don't, most states are paying above, but again, they want you to believe that everybody's just making $7-8 an hour and everybody's just starving in the streets. And it's clearly not the case, especially post-COVID. And I almost did it again. The response to COVID. And people just, people sitting home getting $900 a week out of unemployment. And then having to come back into the workforce really forced wages up, because a lot of people are like, I'm not leaving my house. I was making $900 a week doing nothing. I'm not going to freaking go back out there and make less than $900 a week. So the response to COVID, government's response to COVID, kind of drove wages up and then drove this competition. Now, they're going to make you think that's a good thing. But it was artificial. It wasn't because the people or the corporations decided we want the best workers. We're going to raise our wages up above everybody else because we want the cream of the crop as far as employees. No. The government's response, the locking down, the shutting down of businesses and everything else, created this artificial thing. And then now you still have employers struggling to get employees and keep them. Because, yeah, wages did go up and they're all up. But, of course, look at inflation, too. Are all those people that are making that extra money caused by the reaction to COVID making more money? No, because they printed trillions of dollars and drove inflation up. And those people, all that extra money, they don't see it. It's gone. So that argument is also irrelevant.
Well, here's how the cycle of minimum wage.
Are you freaking kidding me? Skype did it again. Well, at least this time it came back. Hold on. I don't know. Skype has been a real pain in my neck. Let me try to call him back. I don't understand what's going on. I'm about ready to scream my head off. Oh. Okay, dude, I don't know what happened. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just can't see you, but I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on. This is 2 out of 3 weeks that Skype has done something stupid. Okay. Whatever works.
John, is that you?
That's me.
Oh, hi.
I don't know what's going on. Anyway, we're back. But yeah, the minimum wage thing is just absolutely
so
goofy.
Here's the minimum wage cycle. So what happens is there's people at the bottom who were making minimum wage. Let's say there are the state minimum wage, $12.50. So then you bump everyone's minimum wage up. So then everything in McDonald's is costing a little more. Everything at the grocery stores, anybody who is making minimum wage there, that's costing more. All the ice cream shops, like the fun things that high schoolers work, the tilt-a-whirl places, the mini putt shops, those places are all going to charge more. So then the average person out working has to, they're going to tell their boss, hey, everything's costing me more money. I need a raise. So then those guys all get raises. So then everything costs more. So then what do the people at the bottom need? Well, we need to raise minimum wage to make up for it. So then you raise minimum wage. Then everything gets more expensive. Then everybody wants more money. And the cycle continues. So yeah, the government interference is what drives up inflation too. Like artificially increasing wages will increase prices for people.
Yeah, it is just absolutely, and again, absolutely mind-blowing that people still don't grasp this. Again, they don't understand. I just wonder if you could educate people on the very beginnings, of the minimum wage laws, how they were actually based in racist philosophy. If some of these people would back off. Also, if they understood that built into a minimum wage is that you have to have a certain level of education and skill to, make it reasonable for an employer to hire you at $15 an hour. So the people in the poorest neighborhoods in this country whose schools suck and their kids aren't getting an education, when they get out of school, they still can't make $15 an hour because they don't have the education. They don't have any of the skills. So you're still screwing over the poorest people. The only people that are getting this $15 an hour are people who come out of decent schools that have just enough of an education to push the buttons or run the cash register or flip the burgers or whatever. They're going to get it. But the poorest people still won't get $15 an hour. So in essence, they're literally just devastating even more the economically the poorest people in this country, and they just can't grasp it because there's a little selfish notion built in here that I deserve X amount of money. Okay, do you really? Like, again, if you're in school, you're working a part-time job at McDonald's or whatever, you're not paying rent, you're not making car payments, you're not doing all these things. You're not trying to buy a house. You're literally having a job, so yeah, you can pay the insurance on your car and have gas money and do whatever else. Do you really need $15 an hour? And again, another byproduct of this whole thing, the response to COVID, the increasing wages, the increasing inflation. Yeah, of course these people want to make more money because rent and food costs and everything else is ungodly high. Okay, why are they that high? Is it because everyone around you that owns a business or has rental property is a greedy SOB? Or is it because of government actions that cause the spikes in home costs, the spikes in the cost of every freaking thing around you? Whose fault is that really? And you're going back to these same people demanding higher wages when their actions have caused you to be in a pickle to begin with. Come on.
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. It just makes me want to take my glasses and fling them across the room and smash my head into a wall. But then I'd have to do drywall work, which I suck at, so we won't do that.
Yeah. So like you were saying, when so the people, they come out of college, they can't find a job, or not come out of college, they come out of, like, they're not educated or trained enough to make that $15 an hour job until $15 an hour is the new $7.25 an hour. So yeah, they continue, they just build their own cycle, and they never focus. This is another point. They never focus on how can we lower costs. That's never the answer. It's always how can we raise wages, not lower costs. If you lowered the cost of things, you wouldn't have to raise the wages. You wouldn't have to print the money.
Isn't that strange how that works out? My friend Sam always made a good point when he talked about this. The other, and I think Voodoo Queen kind of hit on it here. The government loves this. If people's wages increase, because guess what they get? They get more tax dollars. So yeah, it's a win-win for government. Oh yeah, sure, push everybody's wages up because every year we get more money and more money and more money that we can waste on the dumbest things possible. Hooray for us and all of our grand stupidity here, there in D.C. or some of these state houses. But I digress. All right, so we've gone through the amendments. We've highlighted how stupid it is that people keep thinking that it's okay to, what is it? Amend the Constitution constantly until we have the old 1980s yellow pages as a Constitution. So you can't really carry it in a pocket anymore. You got to carry it around in a briefcase, and it's going to weigh 5 pounds, and everybody thinks that's generally acceptable. I don't know how. I don't understand. It's just the way it is. Listen. Everybody needs. If you're not in the live stream, Brandon has a great shirt on. It just has the word politicians, and then it's got a guy standing on top of the N and politicians and vomiting on top of that. Brandon, where did you get that shirt?
My fiance actually bought it for me. For as a birthday present. I don't know where.
I mean, I like mine. You know, I got my God Hates Feds, but that is a great T-shirt, and I just, now that your screen thing has changed, I see it better than I did earlier, and I love that shirt. That's a great shirt. All right, folks, to the inevitable. We had a lot to discuss here on this, and there's so much to say. Good Lord. Where to start? I want to touch on one thing before we get into some of the other topics on this topic or the other variables of this topic. You know, Trump had this big campaign rally at Madison Square Garden. Packed house, blah blah blah. I don't care about the crowd size, it's whatever. But I don't have the clip available. I should have looked it up, and I didn't take the time to look it up. But some idiot in the media they equated, they lined that up. They paralleled that to 1939, that the American Nazi Party held a rally in Madison Square Garden, and a Jewish man rushed the stage, and they started beating the snot at him, and he had his hand, or his head in his arms, trying to block the blows. And I'm like, okay, I'm no fan of Trump, but what in the hell are we doing here? Are you going to sit here and tell me, honestly, straight-faced, that you are literally comparing Hitler and the Nazi Party to a Trump rally in Madison Square Garden in New York City? Do you think that Madison Square Garden in today's age, if these people were literally Nazis, do you think Madison Square Garden would let this happen? Heck no, that would be a stain on them. They're not going to allow all these Nazis to come marching into Madison Square Garden. Get the F out of here. You're freaking kidding me. When I heard that, even my wife is like, oh my God. We heard it on, I think it was Dave Smith's podcast. And then Clint Russell played the clip today, and she goes, are they still doing this? She goes, oh, wait, we heard this the other day. I was like, yeah. Same clip, different podcast. But when you hear it, you just sit there and you go, we're really doing this. We're really lining these. We're really making a parallel, a comparison of 1939 American Nazi Party to a Trump rally in 2024. Are you out of your freaking mind? Of course, the answer is yes. This is the media. This is the state of media now. It's and again, if some people take this very seriously, they're going to see this and think, oh my God, they're right. The Nazis were there in 1939. And 65 years later, they're back. Oh my God. And that's the saddest part. It is sad that the media portrays this as another Nazi rally. But the sadder part is there are people out there that will parrot this nonsense over and over and over again until we get to the election. And if Trump wins, right on after, they'll talk about this for 4 years. They'll probably blame it on the Nazi rally in October at Madison Square Garden in 2024. That's going to bring the downfall of democracy because they allowed Nazis back into the Madison Square Garden. Absolutely ridiculous.
Well, it was one of those media flashpoints. It was one of those. Must have been in the DNC email that went out. Kamala Harris calls him a Nazi. Then Hillary Clinton calls him a Nazi. Everyone from the news stations, Nazi this, Nazi that, Nazi, Nazi, Nazi. It was like whenever they were trying to call J.D. Vance weird. Like the word weird was sent out in the DNC. They're like, this is the word we're using for Vance. It must have tested well in the focus group. So they ran with it. Yeah, I mean, like, it's just another stupid, like, this is what we're calling it right now. And yeah, the rhetoric, it's a higher point of rhetoric than we've heard. You know, it shows to me the desperation within the Democrat Party to go. I mean, they've called him all kinds of fascists and all this other stuff before, but like the concerted effort to convince people that he's a literal Nazi when he's been so on the side of the Jews. Like, that's the funniest part too, is he's head over heels for all of the Israeli lobbies and the entire Israeli government. So I don't understand. The trying to portray him as a Nazi is just such a weird play to me.
You know what would be funny is if we could find somebody who could pretend to be get the fake diplomas and everything, the degrees, everything. Pretend that there's some like clinical psychologist or a medical doctor. Get them on some high-ranking TV show, and it's like, what do you think about all these establishment media folks saying that Trump's a Nazi? And the doctors well, I have a diagnosis for this. And like, oh yeah, what's that? Be interesting. What is it? Most of these people have Nazi Tourette's. Like, oh, Nazi Tourette's. What's that? It's just when you can't stop saying Nazi all the time. You can't. You're always calling people Nazis. It's just constant. You can't stop it. You can't help yourself. You're just in the middle of a conversation. You see the guy's picture and you just scream out Nazi. So the mainstream media, the people, CNBC, MSNBC, ABC, CNN, all these people have Nazi Tourette's. And it's almost adorable. But it is frustrating because they literally have, there are valid arguments about how bad Trump is on things. There are literally we could go through a myriad of the valid arguments against Donald Trump. Those people don't use any of them. It's he's not statist enough for us. He's not war hawkish enough for us. We want all these extra things, and he just won't do them. Hence, he's a fascist. Okay, so he doesn't want the state to have quite as much power as you would like. So he's a fascist? It's a little contradictory, I think. But yeah, it's so funny, but also butt chapping at the same time. There's all these emotions that run through you when you hear these people say this mindless drivel.
Have you heard the new one? I don't know if you heard this, but the new one. So Donald Trump was with Tucker, I want to say, was talking with Tucker, and was talking about how much of a war hawk Liz Cheney was, and said that how would she feel if she was just surrounded by a bunch of guys with rifles pointed at her, because that's what she does to like young men and women in America all the time. That's what Liz Cheney advocates for and was advocating for the whole time she was in office. And the whole mainstream media took it as like Trump called for Liz Cheney's death. That was like that was the email that the DNC sent out. Right, that happened because every news station in the country came out in force. But I don't know if you saw it. I sent you this earlier today. It was a guy with the Washington Post. He was fed up with the Washington Post. I thought it was
I got the clip right here. Let me pull it up, and hopefully it doesn't blast us out. Let me adjust the volume before I kick this on here.
You can cut it off when he gets up and walks out.
Yeah, I'll do that because I don't want to. It's just awkward and stupid. But let me get back to the beginning, and we'll start this up. Maybe.
Is it me, or does it seem like this week Donald Trump is laying the groundwork for contesting the election by complaining that cheating was taking place in Pennsylvania by suing Bucks County for alleged irregularities? And this is on top of his continual assertion that if he loses, it's because of cheating.
Yeah, he's been laying the groundwork for this, just not in the last week, but in the last umpty-ump months. No election can be fair in Donald Trump's mind, unless Donald Trump wins it. And I think we are going to see him both rev up his supporters to contest elections outside of courtrooms and go to every courtroom he can in America where it's relevant to make whatever arguments he can, no matter how far-fetched. We saw
Jonathan,
that
I've
work
got
out last time, but it didn't work out this time.
Hugh.
It may not work. That may not happen this time. And now I'll let you go, Hugh.
Well, I've just got to say, we're news people, even though we're at the opinion section. It's got to be reported. Bucks County was reversed by the court and instructed to open up extra days because they violated the law and told people to go home. So that lawsuit was brought by the Republican National Committee, and it was successful. The Supreme Court ruled that Glenn Youngkin was successful. We are news people, even though we have opinions, and we have to report the whole story if we bring up part of the story. So yes, he's upset about Bucks County, but he was right, and he won in court. That's the story.
I'll let you keep going, Jonathan.
No, I don't appreciate being lectured about reporting when many times you come here saying lots of things that aren't.
I won't come back,
fact.
Jonathan. I'm
But
done. I'm done. This is the most unfair election ad I have ever been a part of. You guys are working. That's fine. I'm done.
And so that was that. You guys are working, and I'm done. And you know what? Good for him to actually get up out of his chair and go, if you know, and that's another thing. I believe that when Jimmy Dore was on with Tucker Carlson, they were talking about journalism. And people think that you have to go to journalism school to be a quote unquote journalist. And he's saying, but the establishment types own the journalism school. You're not churning out journalists. You're churning out cheerleaders for the state. That's what the real journalists probably never went to journalism school, just right out, not too far out of high school. Maybe they started working for a local newspaper. And as Jimmy Dore said, journalists, you look down the street, you go down there, you find out what's going on, you report that, that's it. You don't add your own twist. You don't add your own agenda in there, any of that stuff. That's all there is. You report your findings and you go on. And we don't have that anymore. Fox, CNN, it doesn't matter. The slant, whether it's to the right or to the left, for the most part, Kennedy is kind of she's more libertarian, so you'll get a little better out of Kennedy on Fox, but the majority of them, there is a definite slant in all their talking points and their TV shows. And then most of the shows, they're going to have 4 panelists on there who are screaming over the top of each other, and you can't get a word in edgewise. There's no civil discussion of the topic. It's just, you're a racist. Oh, you're a jerk. You're stupid. You're a communist. And it's for an hour. And nothing gets worked out. There's no real debate of an issue. It just turns into, well, the Republicans suck because of this, and the Democrats suck because of this, and it just keeps the people divided. And so, but yeah, it's that right there. We need a lot more people, whether they write articles for newspapers or they're on television across the country. We need more journalists like that who just say, you either cover the whole story or you don't do it at all. And that's what we need a lot more of.
Well, what's funny is journalists are always looking, like, I guess they're taught to look for, like, you want to be pumping out your highest credible source for information, but it's according to them. So like you said, if the establishment owns the journalism school, then they're going to teach you that the establishment is the highest level credible source you can get. So that's why when you look at like the New York Times and the Washington Post, the big stories, the headlines are from unnamed CIA sources, unnamed ODNI sources, and all this other stuff. And that's the hierarchy, is like you build your way up to getting those anonymous sources, because that's what the establishment and the journalism class have decided is like the upper echelon of reporting and being the news. And so, yeah, they've corrupted their own game. It's a very Rothbardian, one system adds to the credibility of the other system. It's not a check. Journalism is supposed to be a check on the government. But in reality, it's just a subsidiary to substantiate both sides. It's like, we're reputable because we get government sources, and the government gives them those sources to push their agenda. So yeah, the whole system's rigged from the beginning. And then one thing I think that this Hugh guy brings up in that video that kind of gets missed here, he says, I know we're an opinion part of the Washington Post, but we still have to report the news. And if you're going to be and that's the guys that all of these news channels go off of. So they'll have like Fox News, where you're supposed to believe that they're the credible source. Like, well, Fox News, CNN, NBC, all those, that's the news. And then they have their opinion people under the same news network. So if you're going to have the guys that like, our opinion news is better than other opinion news because we're tied to the journalism that works with those unnamed CIA sources, then you deserve all of the criticism when you pump out propaganda. You're not immune to, like, criticism when you pump out propaganda because you're the opinion part of the Washington Post. You're still tied to the Washington Post, and you should still hold some level of credibility when you're giving opinion news like that.
Yeah, it's just, the marketplace should hash this out. Like people, which again, the trust in the media is at an all-time low. We've seen, again, if you believe the poll numbers. But when you talk to a lot of people every day anymore, a lot of them have a lot less trust in the media as far as getting the actual truth. They have less and less faith in in those institutions, which is a positive sign. But until the people decide to not turn on those channels anymore, and so the advertisers see that the share of viewers is not working out, and they're like, well, we're not advertising with you anymore because you have no viewers, and you start seeing layoffs, it's just going to continue. Because they're so tied to the government propaganda regime, they feel invincible. They feel like they can say whatever as long as it makes the establishment and the state happy. They're going to be able to say whatever they want, and they will continue to have a job. It's the people's responsibility to turn the TV off. Don't turn on that channel. They notice, oh my God, viewership's down in the millions. And that's the only way you'll affect them, is to hit them economically. If you try to get the politicians to fix it, well, they're going to fix it in their favor. So you have to hurt them economically. You're not going to hurt their egos. You're not going to change their mind and get them to become more objective people in their job. You have to financially hammer them. That's the only way. And even then, are they going to change their tune? No, there'll just be less of those idiots talking. And at some point, maybe they have to go, okay, we're gonna have to change it a little bit. We're gonna have to tone it down some, because apparently, the veil has been lifted and everybody sees how idiotic we are. But until their wallets are struck and hit hard, and the dollars stop flowing in, these people will just continue on and on with whatever the propaganda agenda is for that month, day, week, or year.
I think a couple examples that prove exactly like what you just said is what you were saying a minute ago is Chris Cuomo, when he had his debate with Dave Smith, he kept saying, we were just reporting what our sources were telling us. And the same thing happened. I don't know if you saw J.D. Vance sat down with Jake Tapper on CNN, and they got pretty heated because they brought up Hunter Biden's laptop got brought up. And he's like, well, you guys at your network pushed this nonsense. And he's like, we were just reporting Jake Tapper goes, we were just reporting what we were told by officials. And it's like, that's the whole thing. That's the whole, like, yeah, these establishment, like, news journalists feel like they can say whatever they want with impunity. One, because their dollars never quit going away. And two, because they're naming sources. So they can always just pass the buck on. It's very frustrating.
And it brings up, I think I played that clip last week of that former FBI agent or whatever that was talking about, like, you got to read the whole paragraph. It just had all the earmarks. They gave them that's the other thing people got to learn about government. A lot of time, Fauci did the same thing with COVID. After everything kind of, we returned to normal, if you can call it that. It was plausible deniability. They give themselves plausible deniability all the time. They will frame and word it in such a way that they just, if you try to come back at them, they're like, well, we didn't say that exactly. No, but the implication's there. And then you fear the media guys, the businesses, the corporate, you fear all these people into towing the line. You fear the social media. The implication was there. If you don't do what we tell you, we will hammer you. They know it. The social media companies knew that. If they didn't do what the FBI and the Department of Justice told them to do, there would be consequences for not following along with the playbook. So they can use this, and the plausible deniability works on a lot of Americans. People got to figure this crap out. They will phrase it in such a way that if it falls apart down the road, that they word screwed enough to where they can't get into any trouble. You're not going to get them into any trouble. And they will stick to that playbook. They will stick to those words to the end of time. You will not get them to budge. The only people that'll budge on it, and then it's not the people that came out and said it in the first place, but eventually the whistleblowers will start coming out of the woodwork and saying, yeah, they screwed us. They screwed you guys over. We know it. But the big media outlets won't have the whistleblowers on. That's when you have to go to the Tucker Carlsons and the like to get the whistleblower's opinion. The media will not put those people on because they were complicit in those crimes and then the propaganda. And they're not going to admit to wrongdoing either. So another reason to look outside the mainstream media and go to the Tucker Carlsons and or the Joe Rogans or whoever of the world is that's where the whistleblowers are going to get the invites because they're open-minded. They just want to have a discussion about the topic at large. The mainstream media and the state want nothing to do with a civilized discussion, a debate of what the truth is. It is, we're going to blast your brain with propaganda waves until you submit to our will. That's it. That's all.
Yeah.
So anyway, this stuff is just like it is. If Brandon, I gotta admit, if we weren't stuck in this boat with everybody else, if we were somehow on the outside of this, like we had our own like private territory, that we were close enough to receive all the TV signals and the satellite signals, and we were watching TV, but we weren't tied to any of this. We were just in our own little location, no central government. We're just doing our own thing, taking care of ourselves. If we were watching this, we'd be like, oh my God, this is freaking hilarious. If you see these people, but because we're in it with everybody else, it's not so funny. But if you're just a little bit outside looking in, you don't have to be dying laughing like, these idiots, the truth is right there, and the guy won't admit it. We all know this is the truth, and they still won't admit it. This is like a comedy sketch.
It's so funny how like the like you're saying, the Tucker Carlsons and the people who watch non-establishment media, we learn about things so much earlier than people. Like, it'll take years sometimes for a media narrative to get busted. Sometimes it's a little shorter, but like things like the Kyle Rittenhouse story. It took forever for that narrative to get busted. They were blatantly lying about multiple facts around that case, and they just kept it going. We all knew. Like if you were on the internet or watching some of the fringe media, you would see. Oh, I guess Fox News wasn't as bad with that story, but you get what I'm saying. There's a lot of stories that the media is just so bad about.
It's astounding, dude. And like I said, I want to touch on this since we're talking about, being on the outside, just watching. If you were on the outside and you're just watching this go down, you're like, oh my God, this is the best. This is like a pay-per-view event, except it's just stupid TV. So let me ask you this, Brandon, because it has the question or this situation has been talked about, that if Trump were to be elected, that they would work an amendment to say, oh, he's been, they would not certify him as the winner of the election. That they would, and then they would have to be prepared for this civil war because of all the Trump supporters getting fired up because he won enough, of the electoral college votes to win the nomination and become president, and we just have to make sure that we won't certify him, that he is ineligible because he's a felon and he did this and he that he caused an insurrection, so we're not certifying him, and it's going to fall to Harris. And that's been proposed. They've talked about it out loud to media. So the question is, I'm not saying it's going to happen. Who, at this point, after 2020, who knows what in the heck is going to happen here? And we don't have, it's not like Trump is just like the greatest. Harris is awful. Trump's not any better, really. But what do you think would happen? Let's just do a mental exercise here. What do you think would happen if Trump gets enough electoral college votes to win? The media says he's won the election, and they turn around and refuse to certify it and say this is why he can't be president and Harris is the winner. What do you think will happen? And vice versa, what do you think is going to happen if Trump wins? Also, so first part, what do you think will happen if they decertify it and everything else, and they don't allow him in? But let's say that doesn't happen and he wins and he's allowed to go into the White House January of 2025. What do you think is going to happen in those two instances?
So I think if Trump wins the Electoral College and somehow Democrats try to keep him out, if you'll understand right then whether or not he's got establishment support or not. Because if he doesn't have establishment support, what's going to happen is all of the entities that make up the bodies, like the Supreme Court, Congress, the media, they're all going to act like what the Democrats are doing is what they're supposed to be doing, that it's all right, and that this is like Trump's not really supposed to be president because he did violate the 14th Amendment, and they'll work him out, and people will go nuts. But I think most people, you'll see a ton of protesting, and Trump will never quit. He would be in the media every day on every channel, every outlet, talking about how it was actually stolen and all these. He'd probably make a bunch of money, bunch of rallies, all this other stuff. But if he wins the electoral, and so I think life would eventually go back to normal if Trump won the Electoral College and Kamala Harris somehow still became president. I mean, you're going to have a lot of I would guess that most people would throw a really big fit about it, and then eventually life would go back to normal, and we would have to have President Kamala. That's what I think would happen. I don't know which side of that fight. I would stand up and protest them stealing the election from Trump. I'm not a fan of Trump. Anyone who watches this show regularly knows I'm not a fan of Trump. But if they actually tried to steal it from him, like he wins the Electoral College and they won't let him in, I'll join a protest. Just because, that would be insanity, to let Kamala Harris go in after Trump wins the nomination. If Trump wins the nomination and becomes president, what I think is going to happen is that the strides that in the government that the woke agenda has made is just going to be put on pause for the most part. So you're not going to see DEI in the military. Certain institutions that receive government funding that try to enact these DEI programs, you're going to see some pushback at the government level on some of that. I think a lot of it's still going to persist because I think the woke the woke agenda still is going to own the colleges. They're going to have most teachers in public schools. They have the media, and they have other just establishment, all of the establishment resources are still going to be pushing the wokeness of it. So it's not going to go away because Trump wins. I think what will happen is, based on the people he's promised cabinet positions and statements that he's made very recently, I think what you'd see under a Trump presidency is going to be, the same foreign intervention, the same interventionist foreign policy. He keeps preaching that he's going to be this peacemaker, but he wasn't that guy from 2016 or from 2017 to 2020. He just wasn't that guy. And so, I think Democrats will, when Trump gets in office, if he gets in office, I think you'll see Democrat cities protesting the same way they did in 2016, but then eventually life will go back to normal. The mainstream media will talk about Trump all the time. Their numbers will get better, and life will go on.
Yeah, Voodoo Queen makes an interesting statement here, and she said, and maybe it's hard to say what the effects will be if Trump wins. It's. I mean, you know the general reaction. The wokies, the lefties, the progressives. Most of them are going to lose their minds for a while. There'll be protests everywhere. Hell, there could be riots for all we know. But Voodoo Queen makes an interesting statement. Separation of the states. I would not doubt if you would see a push from certain what you would call red states to just go, you know what? Let's try secession. Because these people, now, would it happen? I don't know. But I think that topic of conversation will be more prevalent. If the feds keep acting the way they do, and we already have Texas doing Texit, that I think if that would be the first movement to make some major gains if any of these bad things happen, like Texit could be a bigger topic, could gain popularity, but there may be some other states that go, I don't want any part of the federal government anymore. And that would be a great thing to hear. Personally, I would love to hear that. The state's going, yeah, we want all of our sovereignty back. We're done. Yeah, and David says if Trump does win, watch California do it. And they have every right to. There's nothing in the Constitution, no federal law barring a state from leaving the union. That's just what the media wants. But I hope it does come up regardless. Who wins?
So here's why I don't think secession is likely. I'm not saying it's impossible, and I'm not saying enough people won't be fired up enough to try it. I don't think it'll happen because even Missouri's state budget is half funded by the federal government, and we are a very conservative state. So any conservative states that have a bunch of their money tied to federal funding, they're all going to eventually have to curtail to get that federal funding. And too many people in the state of Missouri rely on the government. Anyone collecting Social Security, anyone collecting Medicare, anyone collecting Medicaid, anyone who works for the public schools, any cops, any government officials, all government employees who collect federal government money in some way, they're never going to back secession, and they're going to actually back all of the entities suppressing the secessions. And so I would love to see it happen if they do try to finagle Harris into the office. I just don't see that happening because of even conservative states' reliance on government, and even if every entity of firefighters, cops, teachers, all government employees, if they were all like, this secession talk is bad for our country, blah, 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 I don't think enough people in Missouri I just don't think enough people are going to rise up to build to that level of secession. And one iota of evidence I have for that is the drinking age. The drinking age is technically still decided by the states, but it's 21 across the country because the federal government threatened to take away transportation funding to the states for any state that didn't raise their federal their drinking age to 21. So then what happened? Every state eventually curtailed and made their drinking age 21. So I feel, and I get that's a microcosm and that's a much smaller event than stealing a presidential election. But you get my point, is that I think too many people are going to have federal skin in the game for federal money, and you can't secede and still get federal money. And so until states start weaning themselves off of the federal government, then you could see secession.
Well,
but not until.
So Daniel Miller from he's like the voice and the face of the Texit movement. I've had him on a couple times, and that topic has come up. Like, what about people paying Social Security? He's like, you got to understand. He goes, Texas could leave the union, and everybody getting Social Security would get it. He's like, you can, like, say you retire and you move to France, and you are now a citizen of France. You are no longer a citizen of the United States. You still get your Social Security check every month, even though you don't even technically live. Well, you don't live in the U.S. and your citizenship is not in the U.S. You still get your Social Security check every month. Now, I'm not saying that the feds wouldn't put up a fight and go, okay, You all secede, and we'll hold the money. But by law, by federal law, they still have to pay you that check whether you are a citizen of the United States or not. But it's just an interesting it's an interesting thought experiment. Because I would love to, like you said, I would love for states to start figuring out how to start cutting the federal funding out, just saying, nope, we're going to reject this money. You take that back. We don't want it. They get their budget back in order. They start shrinking the size of government and making it more lean and working towards that ultimate goal of saying, we're just going to get out. I have seen, there has been talk, now I don't know how serious this is, but like 8 states from Texas, so like Texas, Mississippi, Texas, Mississippi, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Kentucky, and Tennessee, all having a combined effort to all poop out at once. They all dump. So this big major section, except for Illinois and then, of course, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Minnesota. And so the very north of the central United States would not secede, but everybody almost below them would. So you'd have like 6 or 7 states that just said, okay, we're done. And they're all sovereign states, but they're all have decided to work together because like Texas has the 13th largest economy in the world. So Texas could do it. California, even though their budget is stupid and they tax their people to death, their economy is large enough to maybe, I don't know, I'd see California crashing and burning because of the way they treat their citizens. But their economy is large enough that they may be able to do it. Now, I could see Texas seceding and winning. They've got oil. They're right there on the Gulf, so they got their ports. It's a huge state by landmass. The only one bigger than them is Alaska. I just wish people would take it seriously. I know there are people like, it'll never happen. Ever, ever, ever. Okay. I'm sure 200 plus years ago, they thought, you're not going to beat the biggest empire in the world, which was Britain, and you're going to gain your own sovereignty and become a nation. You're never going to beat the Brits and become your own thing. That happened. I just hate that. And I'm not saying you're saying this, Brandon, but there are people out there like, nope, can't do it. Nope, won't do it. Never happened. It's like, why are we giving up? If you're giving up on the fact that a state could secede and be successful at a national divorce, then it's like, you just take it off the table. Don't even talk about it. If you're gonna give up that quickly, of course you got to educate the people, get them on board, make them understand fully what's at stake, but also an understanding of what a true sovereign state would look like. But I'll tell you this, I would project that if Texas was to leave the Union, and successfully nationally divorce themselves from the federal government, dollars to donuts, big companies employing a lot of people just because of the ability to leave that regulatory state of the federal government and all those other things, there'll be a whole lot of big companies moving to Texas because it's going to be cheaper for them to manufacture. They got boatloads of people to employ, and they're going to enjoy a much more successful business and a much more profitable business because they've left the crap behind them and went to a place where they're much more free to operate. I just want to see it happen. I want to see somebody divorce themselves from this awful central planning idiots and say, and then just go back. And of course, all these states are going, oh my God, Texas is terrible. And then they're just down there and everybody's like, I don't know what you guys are complaining about because I get to keep more of my money and I got jobs galore to look at and all this other stuff. What are you guys doing? Still playing with those idiots? Ah, ha, 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 and laughing maniacally. I just want to see it.
Yeah. No, again, I'm not, like you said, I'm not arguing against it. I think it's still too fringe of an idea among the populace right now, where I don't think it would happen. But I don't think it's a bad idea. I join a Missouri exit, the Mexit.
There you go. Yeah.
But I would join that club in a heartbeat, and I would advocate for it, absolutely. I had this conversation just the other day with coworkers. The founding fathers did not their grievances against the king were minimal compared to what we deal with. They were dealing with a government on the other side of the ocean that they didn't want to deal with. We've got our government so ingrained in our lives all the time, taking our money every opportunity they can, where we have no choice in a lot of the stuff that goes on. It's that you could make the case for it just as well as the founding fathers made the case for it back in 1776. It's like these guys were just fed up with the government, and they decided they didn't want to be ruled by a king anymore. It wasn't like they weren't like, this king, he's a good guy, but we've got some great ideas for this America. Like, that's the way the textbooks teach it, is we have this dream of America. It's like, no taxation without representation. We're done with the king. And that's how it started. And I definitely would support it in Missouri for sure. What do you think's going to happen post-election? Do you, let's say if Trump gets the Electoral College, Trump wins the Electoral College, they announce it day after election or election night, what happens?
I kind of go, I'm kind of going along with you on the, it gives the mainstream media, the CNNs and the MSNBCs and all the rest of the idiot brigade, nonstop. Trump's Hitler. He's a fascist. He's oh my God, he's going to be a dictator. He's going to reign forever until he dies. All that crap's going to get paraded about. I do think that a second time around, the protesting and stuff could be a little worse than the first time, because there's been 4 years of him in office and then 4 years of him out of office, and the media still talking about him and pushing, it seems like even worse than when he was in office, this talk of being a fascist dictator and racist and all this stuff. And of course, a couple attempts on his life. I think the rioting and stuff could be actually worse. Now, again, after a while, it's gonna tone down, and they'll just go back, like you said earlier. The media's gonna constantly parrot about him being a Nazi and whatever. Here, I want to say a couple things here, and I know that one of these is a very big hypothetical situation. Here's what I hope to see, but I don't hold out hope to see. This is what I want to see. I want to see Tulsi Gabbard as somewhere high up in the Department of Defense, because she won't send people to war willy-nilly for the most part. Yeah, she's a sucker for Israel. This Ukraine-Russia thing, Yemen, Syria, stuff like that, she's going to be like, yeah, no, thank you. I would also like to see Robert Kennedy head of the FDA. Now, I say that with a caveat, that if Robert Kennedy would just promote and start a new education on nutrition. I don't want an RFK that's like, well, I'm just going to regulate different than these guys. I'm going to ban all these things. I want him to be more like, so he takes the food pyramid, he gets on TV, he holds it up, and he rips it to shreds and go, hey, schools and parents and people everywhere, that food pyramid is crap. We're getting rid of it. I'm making a new food pyramid that tells you what your diet should actually look like if you want to be healthy. I would love to see that. So RFK, head of the FDA, or something to do with nutrition and food and drugs, better educating Americans, okay? Again, this is a big hypothetical. Tulsi Gabbard is Secretary of State, something where she's like, hey, you don't need to intervene here. Just let them deal with their own problems. Stay out of it. I don't hold out hope for that. What I do see happening is a lot of these swamp creatures still being in the different cabinets. I don't think it's going to be anything, any drastic change. I will say this, and I'm speaking, if let's just say on the off chance that Trump wins He's allowed to take office. And his first day, he goes, I'm pardoning Ross Ulbricht. That would be huge. A huge win. And this is a big if. But if it does happen, on the off chance that he does this, that is a huge win for the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party would then have the ability to go, look what we did. We worked with a guy like Trump and convinced him to pardon Ross Ulbricht and get him out of prison ASAP. That's a huge win for the Libertarian Party. Is it going to happen? I don't know. Probably not. But if it does, huge win for libertarians everywhere. That's a big boost for the party because they're like, it makes them seem more viable and relevant. Like, we work with somebody outside of the party and got something good done. And maybe you get a couple other little libertarian things done. Maybe Vivek Ramaswamy gets a cabinet position where he can, sort out the economic policies a little better because he seems a little better on these things. So even if Trump gets elected and there's little libertarian wins, and like you said earlier, it slows down the progression of the woke ideology and some of that stuff slows down or maybe just comes to a crawl. That's a huge win for America. Now, again, is Trump going to have good financial policies? Probably not. Is he going to have good overall foreign policy? Probably not. But even if the libertarians of this country can get a couple of small wins, a Ross Ulbricht pardon, again, like a Tulsi Gabbard in some kind of foreign policy position where she can talk a little sense into people, because Tulsi's already proven she'll get right out in front of America. She defied her own party when she proposed that bill that said you cannot take American tax dollars and send it and fund basically our enemies at that time in Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, who were fighting. So one CIA is funding this part, and another group from the some other agencies funding the other people, and they're fighting in Syria. She proposes a bill that says you're not allowed to do that anymore, and the Democrats lost their minds. So even if those people get a good enough cabinet position where they get to come out and say what's exactly going on, that is still, again, it's not a big win. It is a slight win to have people in upper levels of government coming out and saying things that need to be said. Do I think that's going to happen? It's probably not. Let's just hope we get a couple of liberty wins. Somebody gets pardoned. You slow down the war machine. You slow down big pharma or big ag or something. But you slow it down a little bit. And you get some people out there who are well-versed in these topics, openly talking about things in the media so people can hear it. That is still somewhat of a win. I just don't have a lot of faith that it's going to happen.
Yeah. I don't have enough faith to vote for that. But I mean, I have so Trump might, if Trump pardons Ross Ulbricht, I just don't, it's not like, it's important and it's cool, but it's not shifting things. Like, it's not really, like, if he's just giving libertarian parrot wins, but then continues to do 99% of the reasons like that libertarians don't like him, I'm more convinced that he's going to have people like Mike Pompeo run the Secretary of Defense. And then we're in the same, like, I think we're going to spend trillions of dollars over the next 10 years in the South China Sea. I think we're going to still spend tens of trillions of dollars in the Middle East over the next 10 years. I don't think either one of those things is going to change. I don't think Trump's going to pump the brakes on Social Security or Medicaid. I don't think he's going to ever seriously try to end the Fed. I think he's good. He's a good moral fight against wokeness and transgenderism and the leftists, but I don't think he's the savior of the country that some people prop him up to be. I've seen him be president once before. He still brags about the lockdowns. and he brags about the COVID vaccine. So if you're expecting him to come and crack the whip on the pharmaceutical industry over what? Over the vaccine that you gave them permission to make? I don't know. I'm not buying it. It would be, again, a Trump presidency is better than a Kamala Harris presidency, but it's not good enough for me to want to, like, the Democrats getting worse doesn't make me want to pick the lesser of two evils anymore. I'll admit I'm wrong if Trump goes into office and has a good presidency. I will admit I'm wrong, but I'm not going to vote for him on his promises. Not this time. I think again, it'll be easy to see day one. Day one, you'll see who his cabinet is and who he wants to appoint places. And if those people make it in, then I'll admit I was wrong. But if all of the swamp creatures are still in his cabinet like they were in his first term, I mean, then what I don't want to see is all of the libertarian voices who are on Team Trump right now, defend all of the stuff he does, or just like brush it all under the rug because you supported him. You know, that's what I'm afraid of, is that all of those policies becoming, like, all of his bad policies becoming more popular in the party because, you know, they refuse to talk bad about the guy that they wanted to win.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have a lot of faith in anything really good is going to get done. But, you know, at this point in time, I'll be honest, if someone that like Ross Ulbricht can get pardoned, I'm going to take anything I can get at this point, because we're not getting anything. We're not, our federal government is done. Now, again, I don't want my federal government looking out for me and doing things for me. But if they were supposed to be doing that, we're not getting anything that our money's paying for. The only thing we're getting is more tyranny and less freedom, and we're getting stomped on, and we're getting censored, and we're getting all these things. I'll take any freaking win I can get. If Ross Ulbricht gets pardoned, okay, we got one win. We got one win. Again, does it change the scope and size of government? No, it does not. But at least there was, even if it was a centimeter gained in some little fragment of freedom, I'll be happy with that. Do I expect him to act any differently than he did in his previous term? No, I don't. But even if he placates people a little bit and says, all right, I'm going to do this, and I'll do this because I told people I would, and then he, you know, it's like, okay, we got a tiny sliver of a win for freedom, but now we have to build on that and build to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But I don't hold out faith that that's going to, I mean, like, I don't believe wholeheartedly that that's going to happen if he gets elected. I'm just saying it's a slight win for people like us if something like that happens.
So here's my counterpoint to that. Joe Biden's administration ended the war in Afghanistan and pardoned Julian Assange. Those are two things that Joe Biden's administration did. And I'm not going to go vote for Kamala Harris because she was part of that administration. Like, they did. I mean, it's essentially the same. Like, yeah, it's a win, and I'm glad Julian Assange got pardoned, but it's not making a huge difference in my life. When I go to the grocery store, it's not going to make my life better. And I'm not saying I will advocate for people like Dexter Taylor and Ross Ulbricht and Julian Assange and I don't want to leave him out. The whistleblower from the big whistleblower. Why am I blanking right now? Snowden, Edward Snowden.
Oh, yeah.
I'll advocate for those people, and I do want to see them all released. But in the grand scheme of all the decisions you're going to be making as president, that one is not enticing enough for me to give up every one of my other values that I think you're going to trample.
Oh, no, I don't expect anybody to give up their values and vote for him. I'm just saying, if that's who we're going to get as our president,
yeah,
and we get a couple of little freedom things done, because, yes, okay, so you're right. Assange kind of got pardoned, except he had to plead guilty on a couple things and admit guilt. Not a true pardon. He got held in a hole in a dungeon for a while. But yes, he technically got pardoned. He just had to plead guilty to, I don't remember what charge it was.
But and the same thing with Ross Ulbricht, though. Trump's not pardoning Ross Ulbricht. He's commuting his sentence.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So I mean, it's the same. It's essentially the same thing. You let him out, but he still has to, admit that he did wrong.
Okay,
So
because
again,
I thought they pushed for him being pardoned, not commuting his sentence.
I thought it was a commute his sentence. I thought when I was in DC watching Trump, I think that's what he said. Again, I could be wrong on that, but I think he just said he was going to commute the sentence of Ross Albright. Did not offer him a pardon, or isn't going to offer him a pardon.
Oh yeah, you're right. Pledges to commute sentence. Yep. Okay, so you're right there. Okay, I was thinking pardon.
If Joe Biden has a better track record of ending wars. Well, not really, because he started the one he didn't start the one in Russia. He just continues to fund it. But same difference. Our government started the war in Russia 10 years ago. But
yeah,
my point stands is that giving me a couple small wins while trampling over everything else. And again, I will admit when I'm wrong on this. And so I would love to be wrong on this. I just I don't have the faith that some of these other libertarians, the higher up libertarians and the ones in the Mises caucus and Mises affiliated, I just don't have their. And I really do hope that people see some of these libertarian ideas being pushed and then become more intrigued in libertarianism and just the values of the Constitution and freedom. I really do hope that. I think what you're going to see more likely is people within the Libertarian Party start to just, they're going to turn a blind eye to some of the bad things Trump's going to do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That'll happen. And I have to admit, we also have to admit, if we're going to just sit here and talk back and forth, Biden, Trump, whatever. I mean, I believe, I know Trump wanted to get out of Afghanistan. Didn't work out the way he wanted it to. He also didn't want to fight in Syria. And, his generals just said, well, we're not doing what you told us to do. That's another thing that people have to be ready for. Let's say Trump wins and he actually, by some miracle, decides that he wants to do better. He's going to have a lot of people that have been in those agencies forever who aren't going to listen to him. They will defy his orders. Guaranteed. They've already proven that they will. General Mattis is like, I'm not doing that. And just downright said, I'm not doing it. When he said, we're going to pull him out of Syria, he's like, nope. And then he ends up quitting. But even if he does win, again, I'm not saying that he will. I'm saying by some miracle, he decides, I'm going to do better than my first presidency in my first term. He's going to have a lot of people that are just going to be like, I'm not listening to you, dude. I hate your guts. Now, too many people believe that they hate Trump because he just represents freedom. No, it's just he's not statist enough for them. I think Clint Russell said it best today on his show that I listened to on my way home. Clint Russell described Donald Trump as a 1986 Democrat. He's an older school Democrat because of a lot of his policies still involves government, but he's not the new Democrat, and that's what ticks them off. He's not quite Democrat enough for them, and that's what makes them mad. Is he's old school Democrat and not new school Democrat, which does make sense based on his policies. Spending money, doing these things is a Democrat move. That is either a rhino or a Democrat move. It's a statist, elitist move. He's just not Democrat enough for them. He's not quite war hawkish enough for them. He's just a little under the level they like, and that's just enough to inflame them all and get them all mad and do anything they can to keep him out. It's not about protecting democracy. It's not about looking out for the people because, again, you have the Cheneys stumping for Harris. If Harris was for the people, you think the Cheneys would back her? No. They're all about war money. And then, of course, Trump's promising to go in and give Israel all the money they want. Heck, he sounds like he wants to go to a war with Iran. So it's just he's just below the status level that they like. That's to me, that's the only difference between him and Harris and the rest of the institutions that hate him. He's not statist enough for them. So if you're measuring, like, Kamala Harris is 12 inches of tyrannical warhawk, and Trump is 11 and 15/16 of an inch tyrannical and warhawk. He's a 16-inch shy of being the central planner's wet dream, and so they hate his guts. That's literally it. In my opinion, that's literally it.
Oh, man. I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway.
I know I went on too long of a rant.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think Trump might be it's going to be like I said earlier, down to who he puts in his cabinet. You're going to be able to tell day one whether he's for or against what he says he is.
For us, if he's for or against us. Real quick, before you go any farther, because David is asking who. I'll let you go first. Who do you think actually is going to win?
I think it's Trump. I really do. I think, and here's another thing too. I think he's liked enough by the establishment. I know people don't believe me. Like, people are going to disagree with that, but I think he's liked enough by the establishment on certain issues where if he wins the Electoral College, I don't think the Democrats will have enough support to, like, from the establishment media and all that. I don't think they'll push that narrative hard enough. But I do think it's going to be Trump. He's still up by like 20 points on the betting market, which is what I care about way more than the polls. And he's crushing it in the early voting. Like, he might go into election day like tied in a bunch of states, a bunch of swing states, and then he's going to dominate on election night. So yeah, I think it's going to be Trump. But
yeah, I concur. I think I again, now would I be surprised if Harris wins? No, I wouldn't. But if I was going to bet who's going to win right now, my money would probably go to Trump. Speaking of that, before I forget, Tuesday night on election night, I will be doing a live stream, and now the major part I want to focus on won't be the presidential race for the most part. What I'm going to focus on is numbers in Missouri. I want to look at ballot, the votes on the ballots and people in Missouri running for office, whether it's state office or congressional seats. That's what I want to focus on, because everybody else and their brother is going to be paying attention to the presidential race. Yes, I will talk about it a little bit, but I'm going to focus more on Missouri stuff. And I think, Brandon, you said you're going to be at some kind of watch party, and you may have some candidates having them call me during the live stream and just to have a conversation. So anybody out there listening in radio or podcast land, you come to the Missouri Liberty Report channel on YouTube or Rumble Tuesday night, probably starting at 6 or 6:30, somewhere in that time. I'm not going to stay up all night. I got to work, for God's sakes, but I will stay on for a few hours and just kind of monitor the situation. But I'm interested to see how these ballot initiatives are going to go, and then see how some of the candidates that have had on the show. I mean, Bryant Wolfen, we know he's going to win because he's unopposed. But we got Jordan, we've got Brandon, we had Bill Slants, people like that. Kind of see what their numbers look like, and then again the Missouri, all the ballot initiatives and stuff is what I'm really interested to see how it goes, because of how many times the schools have been promised money, and how many times are we going to amend the Constitution this November, which I'll be honest, Brandon, I have a sinking feeling it's going to be a lot more than I'd care to admit to, because people just aren't educating themselves enough. But I could be pleasantly surprised too. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Really quick, before we sign off, I just want to give a shout out to all the people in the live chat for my new backgrounds here. We're all inspired by your suggestions. This one's one of my favorites. It said "statist be like." I don't know if you can see it very well.
He's got the road as a blanket.
Yeah. And then we've got the cannabis leaf on an American flag.
Thanks, Tom March, for that one.
Roger Jolly and Calvin Coolidge.
Ah, there we go, the old Coolidge. So, again, folks, for those of you who just joined in or you didn't catch it at the beginning of the show when I talked about it, I will be talking to the park board here in Owensville about what cost would be incurred for renting the big pavilion over at Memorial Park here in town, and trying to find a date end of April, beginning of May, and having our first Coolidge Day. The only thing that I may ask of people is that, they supply like hot dogs or water and, hot dog buns or potato chips. Just grill hot dogs, have a little bit of food, have a little bit of drink, and then have some Liberty, like real Liberty discussion, because, it'll be, what, 5 months after the election, 6 months after the election, and we can talk about, like, what an actual liberty-loving president looked like, and we can quote some of his, some of his best stuff, but just really, it's to focus a little bit on Coolidge, but it's really just what constitutional government actually looks like, what actual constitutional presidents sound like, and the way they behave. Because you look in school textbooks, you're not going to see anything about Coolidge. Coolidge wasn't cool because he wasn't having the government do anything. It's the FDRs and the Woodrow Wilsons and the Kennedys and the Lincolns and stuff like that. You're going to hear all about the big government guys. People like Coolidge, what a waste of time. What do we want to talk about? A guy who didn't try to force more government down your throat. So be looking out for that.
Also, the history books love war. So if you weren't a wartime president, you'd have got brushed over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, folks. Well, that's going to pretty much do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Thanks so much for joining us again. If you're feeling froggy, jump on to YouTube and Rumble around 6:30 on Tuesday night with Lexit night, November 5th. Hang out with me in the live chat and live stream, and I'll just be keeping an eye on the ballot initiatives. Maybe take some phone calls from some candidates to discuss election night a little bit, and we'll hang out for a few hours here on the interwebs and just have a good time watching the world burn, I guess you could say. I don't know. Any parting thoughts before we jump off here, Brandon?
Yeah, if Donald Trump looks like he's going to win on election night, get out of a big city. Get out of a blue city ASAP. They could be lighting that John on fire like George Floyd died again. Yeah,
I meant to bring that up tonight at some point, and I just never did because we got talking about so much other stuff. But yeah, that's a great point. If you live in a big metropolitan area, you might want to leave town for a few days and stay in a outlying rural area and just like watch the flames from several miles away. But anyway, all right, folks, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Thanks to Voodoo Queen, David Dwyer, Catherine Dreyer, Agarizer, Warrior Class 3. Thanks to all of you who showed up tonight in the live stream. A nice, lively live chat as usual. Thank you all, and we'll see you next week right here on the Missouri Liberty Report.